Welcome back. This is Daybreak. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has maintained that the government will continue to reward its loyalists, saying it is like a limited company. Gachagua, who met the Kamba professionals on Monday night, said that those who did not support the government will not be rewarded. He was accompanied by Tourism CS Penina Malonza and hit out at the protests organized by the opposition, saying it will not realize any developments.
For the first time, tumetolea nyinyi kofia. Because saa hii kama wakamba wangetoka maandamano wapigwe risasi wauawe, wangesema ni nini walikuwa wanapigania na ni nini wanafuata. Na huyo hakuna cost of living anafuata. No. Anataka tumgawia serikali kwa nguvu. Na hata tukimgawia na hatuwezi, mtu yenu hakuna kitu atapata. Yeye atakuja apiganie familia yake. That is the truth. So you people, you have a date with the destiny. Your community, the 3 counties of Ukambani, they need water, they need roads, they need electricity. Those things will not come to the level you want when you are out there in the bush. Mutapata because you are Kenyans, kidogo kidogo. Lakini itafuatwa na nani? Who will follow?
I went through firestorms, and you remember very well during Fetting, it was a challenge. But you stood with me, you and the president, you stood with me when the parliament dropped my name, and you are there for me. Thank you very much. And for that reason, that's the only reason we are here today. Because on that fateful night and day, if the parliament dropped my name and you never intervened, then I don't think this congregation would be here today. And so I want to register my appreciation for standing with me.
And that is the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who spoke last night, and also in his company was the Tourism CS Penina Malonza. Will be talking about the content of his speech and some of the issues outlined by both the government and the opposition, which are set to make the agenda of the talks that are set to happen going forward between the government and the opposition. On my far right is the Kisii County Senator Richard Onyonka. Good morning, Senator. Thanks for your time and company. Your time is appreciated.
Thank you very much.
So is his counterpart from Nyandarua County, John Medhu. Thank you for your time and company.
Thank you very much.
All appreciated.
Thank you.
David Kosing is the Member of Parliament representing Pokot South constituency, as well as the Chair of the Public Investments Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And we also have the Majority Whip at the National Assembly, Silvanus Osoro. Your time is all appreciated, gentlemen. Let's begin with the front page of the Standard newspaper, and it says how Ruto-Raila dialogue deal was brokered, from international calls to requests for live streaming of the talks. Politician says the paper burnt the midnight oil to ensure President William Ruto and the Azimio leader enter truce and are kept in the know about the happenings of what was unfolding. 6 leaders were instrumental, according to the paper, and brokered the Ruto-Raila talks to end the political unrest in the country, and of course at the facilitation of the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo. Murkomen, Ishungwa and Sudi are said to have separately convinced Ruto to meet Raila, but a section of Mount Kenya leaders have opposed the Azimio on the Kenya Kwanza talks, and according to also the opposition, they were disgruntled by the presence of Obasanjo, according to a statement issued by Azimio on Sunday. Coming to you first, Senator Richard Onyonka, what's your view of the already and apparent fault lines about what will make the agenda, will make up the agenda of the talks, even before the talks kickstart?
I think in normal negotiated settlements or negotiated discussions on any matter, initially the program or the initial discussions may be a little bit, for lack of better words to explain, maybe even not immediately geared to achieving immediate results. My feeling is that first I would actually like, if this story is true, because I see that there is a group of individuals who have been having what we call quiet diplomacy.
Yeah.
Oscar Sudi, Murkomen, then you talk about Joho and Mutua and other guys. I feel for me that, and I've been saying this here on this platform, that in politics, you must be able to discuss. We've also made it very clear that the discussions we want have nothing to do with agreeing on what sort of handshake we're going to discuss, what perks and any other advantages we're looking for. I think the 5 issues which are on the table are agreeable. I believe that the gentlemen who are on that list, and particularly the team now, you're talking about Wandai, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa and Kalonzo Musyoka, I see that it's a team of leadership that is fair. They are not extremists. These are individuals. We are in the opposition. I think we have accepted that that's our position coming from whatever discussion they take until the end of the meetings. I would hope and wish that their debates and discussions on this matter will be handled with dignity, for the simple reason that you can't start talking about talks and then an hour later you have members from either of the teams discussing and talking about stuff that even when you look, you're like, are these the people who are supposed to give us the way forward? Okay. So, one, I'm encouraged. I know that very many people on both sides, there's a team that feels that the president might have bent backwards to have these negotiations take place. There are others, of course, I'm sure you've seen Honorable D.P. Gachagua himself talking about over this issue over and over. I really want to pray and hope that these individuals will deliver for us the very basic things we are talking about. Okay. I'm also happy. I don't think the legitimacy of the presidency is under question. I don't think that the leadership at the top is naive to the realities of where our country is. So for the last 2-3 days, I've been a very peaceful young man who's positive about the future of this country. I'd reached a stage where I was feeling very, very uncomfortable. I felt like we were letting the ball roll towards the wrong direction. I think the ball has been slowed down. I am hoping that my brothers from KK Alliance will accept this not as a drawdown, but in reality, capturing the mood in the country. Kenyans do not want us to continue with the demonstrations, but they are also saying the critical issues that are outstanding have to be looked at and have to be addressed by the president. Some will achieve in the short term, but I believe others will be in the long term. Thank you. So I'm positive. I'm very positive about the discussion.
Thank you. And talking about the discomfort you have expressed, to some extent and to a larger degree, is because of the political class in this country. We'll talk about the place of also stability going forward and how to head to the path of prosperity. Senator Medhu, I'm looking at what the head of state had said on Sunday, and this is in relation to some of the issues that were highlighted in the letter by Kimani Ichung'wah, which had highlighted 5 key thematic areas which the opposition disowned, saying that we are not party to it and that we have our own sets of agenda that must make the agenda of the talks. I mean, even after the meeting between the president and the opposition leader, how then can the very clear friction between the opposition and the government on what's set to be discussed be ironed out before the teams come together and discuss the issues?
Thank you very much, my brother Ive. From where I sit, I do not imagine that the president met the former prime minister and they only sat for 1 minute and said, we have agreed to form a team. They must have agreed on what the team, to what extent the team would discuss the issues. And number 2, you also know that Kimani Ichung'wah is an esteemed leader in our coalition. He cannot just sit down and write a statement and say that these are the issues that are to be discussed. If anything, what is emerging is that the meeting between the two was private. So he must have gotten the brief of what has been said. And we actually maintain, and he has said for the avoidance of doubt, that the issues to be discussed are clear. And they are the issues that had been agreed upon. Not now. This is the second bipartisan team that is being formed. You know, we had an initial one. it had the 5-point agenda. They already were, the opposition had no issue with the 5-point agenda that was being discussed then, which we still maintain is what will be discussed now. If anything, if anybody wants to sneak in or would want to bring in new issues to be discussed, for example, I've seen that they would want us to speak about the cost of living.
Yeah.
Very good. It's not bad that we want to speak about the cost of living. But we must also agree it is the work of any government all over the world to deal with the cost of living. Be it which country, be it which government.
Okay.
Their core mandate is to deal with the issue, to do with the cost of living. And we are saying, if anybody wants to discuss the cost of living, then we welcome them. But then we have given our route and roadmap and plan of how we want to deal with the issue of the cost of living. Okay. But then what the opposition should be able to do, one is to give, if they have any criticism to the ideas and plan that we have, then they have the avenue in Parliament. My colleagues are in Parliament. They will be able to use the floor of the House. Okay. They have many other avenues of raising their issues. But more importantly, and why some of us are very skeptical about the talks, actually, even as at this minute, because I've heard that you have mentioned that a few of us feel discomfortable with the talks. If then we are discussing the same issues that are to be discussed by the initial bipartisan team, we started the talks, our colleagues went to demonstrations, a number of people have died. The only thing that is happening is that they are lighting candles, they are giving roses, but people have lost their lives. People have lost their businesses. Okay. So then what becomes of a person who has died, a person who has lost their loved one, a person who has lost their business? And then we go back to, again, the same talks. How sure then are we that if, even now when we have started these new talks, they will not go back to the streets again? Talks, and there is no way that anybody would go to, would want to take very hard-lined positions and give ultimatums, and then they would want us to be, to be talking. If we have decided that we want to talk, then very good. We need to speak about IBC. We need to speak about the two-third gender rule. We need to speak about entrenchment of CDF, embedment of the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, formation of the position of the leader of opposition. Okay. Then let us stick to that team that we agree on. I hear...
Is that a statement by Ishongwa what the opposition and the government agreed upon?
That is what they agreed upon, and yeah, you shall get your time. I would want to say, as a coalition, because we also agree on the people that will be in the talks, we had, and it is in the public domain that our colleagues say that we gave you team A, you gave us team B in the initial bipartisan team, so we need to bring a new team so that in our coalition, and my leader is here, the Honorable Soro, in our coalition there is no team B. In fact, I've also written to the president. I would want to be the one that would be leading this team. The one that is being led by Karonzo, then our side should be led by Senator Medu. Okay. It is this way that we shall be able to build experiences, because the issues are clear. Okay. It's not something that is very new that
Okay, Senator Medu, there's no clarity about the issues because you have sets of issues. The opposition has its own agenda for the talks. Honorable David Kosing, you have disagreed and you are not nodding head in agreement with Senator Medu. The opposition confirmed the meeting between the president and its leader, Raila Odinga. And you disowned the statement by Ishongwa as lopsided and that of Kenya Kwanza. So what was agreed during the talks between the head of state and the opposition leader?
Thank you, Ayub. Number one is I disagree because I sit in Azimio summit as party leaders. And when we've been, talking about these things, chaired by our party leader, Raila Odinga. So, and again, also I was in that last bipartisan team, and now we have a new one. And I have a lot of confidence, myself, coming from that side of Azimio, about the new team. And why I'm disagreeing with him. You see, you cannot, in 10 minutes or 5 minutes, agree on everything. No. That's not true. Number two, even what came out by Ishongwa was actually defective. He signed himself alone. that told the people of Kenya that was a defective submission, right? And even if there was some discussion there should be both people to sign. So by Ichung'wa only signing, actually shot himself on the foot. And that is the problem of this talk, Ayub. This is the problem of this talk. There's no good faith. There's no absolute good faith. What would have happened is that if the president met with the former prime minister, then we should allow both of them to be able to synthesize on these issues. A little bit of some time. You don't rush to the newspaper. What was the intention of Ichung'wa doing that? The intention was to try to purport and show the side of Azimio as greedy, looking for a leader of opposition. That's what he really wanted. Number two, Ichung'wa wanted to box us and box Azimio to those 4 issues. We have said this for record, because we also had these issues earlier. Number one, we must discuss cost of living. You cannot disagree about that. You cannot run away with it or away from it. This is our country. All of us own our country. Number two, electoral audit it was one of our biggest opening server. You remember we discussed about this thing. So how can you just decide and how? Even if you have to drop or not drop, we must discuss about it and see how to address that issue. The issue of party hopping, party stealing, party raping, those are the issues we are bringing up on the table and say, look, why don't you allow other parties and coalitions to be able to administer themselves if you are in one country? And finally, now we have brought up a new issue. Okay. Our people of Kenya were killed by police. Those police must be in jail. We must bring them into book as our country, because we cannot just allow lawlessness, Ayub. And we, as Azimio, we are saying we will put them on the table. Right? And even also, we have also invited the international community to be able to look at it. How do you kill Kenyans, Ayub? Just like that. Okay. How? You have pointed out issues, and I was in the press conference by Odinga, which was read by Peter Munya. And those issues were listed after Ichung'wa's statement on Sunday. That is when he issued the press conference at the current residence of the former Prime Minister. Yes. I want to understand and know what then were the issues agreed upon after the meeting between the President and the opposition leader. You have this own Ichung'wa statement. So what was discussed by the President and the former Prime Minister, your principle? That's why I'm telling you, you should have allowed them to synthesize. This idea of trying to speak for the Prime Minister and former Prime Minister speaking for the President was wrong. We must, and that is why, that's what I'm saying, we must allow them to synthesize. Once they have agreed, they will communicate to us and the people of Kenya. You cannot force the President to just, like the way they did. And that is why it brings me to a very important point for today, Ayub. And for the people of Kenya and for us in Azimio, we tend to think that there's not even issues are a problem, right? Not even the composition of the members of the talks is a problem. The problem is, we look at it as Kenya Kwanza is conflicted. Kenya Kwanza should allow the President to function. The President is under siege. And particularly in my view, he's under siege from the Deputy President himself. How so? If you look at the body language of the President, the President wants talks. The President wants to unite this country. And I'll draw you back to Article 10 of the Constitution. He already said he has met the opposition leader. They have talked. And that is siege in what aspect? I mean, that is the body language of the President from the beginning. Okay. Even in the talks which we had, the bipartisan of 5 members, we could see, because we were sitting there, we could see who represents the President and who represents the Deputy President. The Deputy President does not want this country to unite. Okay. I want to be honest to you. We'll talk about... The President wants the country to unite, but the Deputy President does not want. Okay. And they want to blackmail the President. Thank you. The President must be allowed. Okay. The President must be allowed to exercise the mandate to unite the country. Okay. The President has... may I use this term, as a state property, has all the instruments of power, courtesy of the Kenyan people, to function and deliver for them, because he made a pledge. He was given the mandate. Yes. He has a 5-year term to deliver, and the Kenyan people will be the judges in 2027. It's not given by Kenya Kwanza. Okay, thank you. Honorable Soro, coming to you. Why then, despite the meeting between the head of state and the opposition leader cooling the political temperatures a bit, why then the sudden eruption of differences between what's set to be discussed, the scope and the structure of the forthcoming talks?
No, that is normal. That is very normal, because, I mean, in any case, it forms the basis of the talks. And that is why people want to talk, because of divergent political views and, things to be discussed. But to start from where Honorable Kosing has left the statement, the issue of somebody holding the president hostage is not really very true. The president is a unifying factor, and he has a higher calling as a head of state. And the deputy president is the principal assistant to the president. But really, that doesn't make him, some sort of a person who has no opinion on anything. He also has a right to his opinion. And I think this thing of making one look like, you shouldn't say something because somebody else has said, or because, in the political space, there is only one person that can speak, it's not right. In this whole discussion that we're having, the problem we should be discussing is the ingenuity of our colleagues. And I think that is why you hear a bit of some political, some statements that are different. What you saw Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah highlight is what formed the basis of the discussion. And you need to have a chronology of the events, as it were. Okay. You remember that previously, in the bipartisan talk that we had, they were brought forth out of a dispute on the IEBC selection panel. That is what led people to the streets. At that point, they were demanding for, some audit of the 2022 elections, and then they said, we are not comfortable with the selection panel and such like that. This led to the bipartisan talk, and that is how they agreed. Okay, if you guys want to review the act that we had, repealed in Parliament on the selection procedure, then let's go to the bipartisan talk. That hasn't been resolved, and that is one of the items that is included in this very letter that Honorable Ichung'wah wrote. So ideally, when they are disowning their own content, because that is actually the content they brought earlier, then at what stage do we discuss about the IEBC? When we are talking, we should be talking about the, boundaries as such. We should be talking about the by-elections. We do not have commissioners. That is something that can be discussed, that really needs to be discussed. Okay. The reason why you saw a bit of some contradictions, later, immediately after the statement was released, you'll agree with me that the first team to release a statement was the Azimio coalition. That they have agreed with us on discussions. And then, Honorable Ichung'wah, of course, agreeing with Azimio, came up with, highlighted what had been agreed upon as a basis for the discussion. Then they realized, we had all along we've been telling the Kenyan public that we are going to the street because of the cost of living. But we didn't bring it forth in our discussion. So how do we hide our face? How do we cover our face from this shame? Then that is the time they said, okay, you also need to discuss about the cost of living. I mean, really, why do you even want to lie to Kenyans? So, what does it...
Okay, according to you, the opposition was in the know about the content of Ichung'wah's letter when the president and the opposition leader met.
I wish to be on record. It is indeed true that the opposition was also in the know completely. And they also know that whatever that has been highlighted by Honorable Ichung'wah is what they propose for discussion. And by the way, again on record, that is the only thing that will be discussed. Trust me. The thing, the cost of living item, for lack of a better word, and using your media terminology, will be a cutaway. Okay. It will be something that will just pass by within the discussion. Because really, it is... how do you discuss about the cost of living when there is a plan? Because that is a plan. Okay. You're telling the Kenya Kwanza administration, discuss with us, like an exam, what you plan to do to lower the cost of living, which is already out there. They can read our manifesto. Okay.
Honorable, sorry, I'll come to you. You'll have enough time. I'm coming to you, Honorable, sorry, still. I'm looking at the 5 points that Ichung'wah's statement had highlighted. Except for the reconstitution of the IEBC and the embedment of the Prime Cabinet Secretary's position in law, the other 3 key issues make up 90% of the President's memo to Parliament in December last year. I mean, there clearly is the hand of the president in this. I mean, what makes it not a Kenya Kwanza drive, and perhaps what might have informed the opposition's disowning of the letter by Kimani Ichung'wah?
You've actually stated it very well, that apart from the other 2. So ideally, in forming the basis of the discussion, somebody brought the 2 and another person proposed 3. And there is nothing wrong with that. And that is now what discussion is all about.
So the 3 was...
Because like the entrenchment of or inclusion of the CDF in the Constitution, that is not a Kenya Kwanza just affair. It is something that has been within the discussion of the plenary, and I think even Honorable Kosi will not go against that, because that is a proposal that actually started way back early, even in 2013, that has never been actualized. So it's not really the president's proposal, it is actually our proposal to him, and he graciously accepted. Okay. So if there are 5, and somebody brought 2, and we proposed 3.
So they brought 2, according to you?
I mean, going by your word.
Constitution? Not my word, it's in the statement.
Exactly, because you just said...
It's your leader's statement.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they brought the 2, the opposition.
They brought the 2.
And they disowned the cost of living.
Of course, they didn't bring the cost of living discussion. That is public. They are playing with the public gallery.
Senator Onyonka, I mean,
Yes.
In confidence, are you in a position to tell the Kenyan people what was discussed? Because Osoro tells us that despite the 3 issues that KK had highlighted, it's you, the opposition, who had brought on board the IEBC reconstitution, issue as an agenda, and also the embedment of the Prime Cabinet Secretary's position in law, according to Osoro, who is privy to the talks. But what is the opposition's account of whether you have contributed those 2 agendas to the talks between the president and the opposition leader?
Thank you. To be honest with you, I look at this issue from a little bit different perspective. And the perspective is very simple. And there are things which we can agree on. And my argument is, let us pick those ones which we can agree on. For example, the issue of electoral injustice. I don't think that we can go to the discussion of electoral injustice in Kenya where we are talking about even the current elections which just ended and the results of those elections. I just believe that there are certain issues which are required to make sure that this issue of our country getting into elections every 5 years, and we have this noise, we have this war, these are things that we can sort out. I don't think that these are very difficult things to do. If you look at what our side has been talking about as Azimio, and I always laugh with my brother Methu and Osoro because they're on the other side. For me, the joy of what is happening right now, this is what a democracy is meant to do. A democracy must allow the parties that are engaged in this box, which is our country right now, for whatever reasons and for whatever circumstances, to talk. For me, all these other issues, the noise I hear, I mean, how many times did we have Kalonzo Musyoka going to Naivasha when he was discussing negotiations over the South Sudan independence?
This process.
I mean, how many years did it take for these people to discuss? It was 22 years. But we don't have the time. We are running out of time on the IEBC nominations and selections of the commissioners. We are having an issue where, on our side, there are certain small details that are not in the major issues that have been brought to the table. I'll give you an example. In the Senate, we in Azimio are saying, don't tell me as a senator to go and oversight Kisii County government and have no mechanisms to oversight that Kisii County government. Those are issues that we want to be discussed as tier 2. But on the tier 1 issue, let the president agree the way he has agreed to encourage the talks to take place. That's what a leader does. That is, I mean, look at the great democracy, look at the US.
Okay.
The last budget which Biden passed, he had to go and look for McCarthy, who's the Speaker of the House, to negotiate on what they're going to do in the budget.
On the debt ceiling crisis.
Exactly. I mean, this is what democracy does not say, that once you win elections, you take everything, you tell everybody they can go to hell, and then you continue charting a path of that country. No, sometimes you fall back and listen to what your detractors or what your opposition is talking about. And I think so far, at a personal level, I really want to encourage what the president has done. I want to encourage what Raila is discussing with the team. I am happy with the team that has been selected by the opposition.
Okay.
I hold Kalonzo highly. I hold people like Mutua. These are individuals, I believe, who mean well. And our country must teach itself on how we move forward. We are always going back, and we are always talking about issues that, to me, don't mean much. In fact, I have always been telling my friends in Azimio,
Thank you.
Even the issue of cost of living, which we are talking about, and the Kenyan public is engaged on that. But we must also be sensitive as Democrats to allow Osoro and Methu, being on the other side, and the president, to actually fail.
Thank you.
Yes, if they are not going to be able to sort out the issue of cost of living,
all right,
then that will give us leeway in the next 4 years to get rid of them.
Thank you. And
so I don't think it's a matter that people cannot agree on.
Thank you. Okay, you talked about democracy, you talked about the agreements needed, and even citing the example of the United States, but there was a man called Donald Trump who was so undemocratic in the sense that he even teared apart the United States. Senator Medo and Honorable Kosing, I'll come to you after the break. Here on the broadcast, and the hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya, at Ayub Abdikader, and we'll sample your feedback here on the broadcast towards the tail end of Daybreak. Stay tuned.